everybody. It's me, Jeff Galashaw, here with AJ Epics, Andre Joseph. And this week we are doing an unfinished business whoop, whoop, whoop deep dive, where we will be talking more about a film, more than a review, but also trivia, personal memories, trying to dissect the film to a certain degree. And this week, we have a comedy from the 90s, a buddy comedy at that. I did not pick this movie. I just want it noted, but it is Bulletproof, starring Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans, directed by Ernest Dickerson. This film follows Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler, who start off the film as best of buddies working for a crime syndicate, before it is revealed that Damon Wayans has been an undercover cop this whole time and is accidentally shot in the head by Adam Sandler, who then goes on the run. And then once Adam Sandler is arrested, he cuts a deal to testify against James Caan's villain character. In exchange, he only wants one person to be his bodyguard, and that is Damon Wayans, who survived the gunshot wound and now has a steel plate in his head. And as he tries to bring him in, obviously the villains keep closing in, and it seems that a lot of them are dirty. So we watch this buddy comedy, action comedy throughout. I have to ask you, Andre, why did you pick, of all movies, Bulletproof? And
it's an interesting crossroads, I think, for the three people that are involved in this movie. So when I saw this film, and it was first when it came out in 96, I was already an Adam Sandler fan before he got overplayed in a lot of the later comedies he did. At the time, it was only Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore, and some even might even say Airheads. And so I enjoyed watching those movies on home video. In fact, Happy Gilmore, me and my cousins, we played that to death, especially when Carl Weathers finds the alligator hand in the box and drops out the window. We kept rewinding that part all the time. And so I had so much fun with that I was actually one of those people that was excited to see him do like an action comedy like 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop. And I was a fan of Damon Wayans from In Living Color, so I thought this was a pretty good combination. And I was underwhelmed by it. It just wasn't the Adam Sandler movie that I expected it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a lot of action, but the laughs were kind of lame. And, maybe there were some moments, but it just felt a little bit uneven to me. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I don't think he had his writers involved with that one, because he and Damon Wayans knew each other from the stand-up scene. Damon had hosted Saturday Night Live, so they got along well backstage. And he said, "Hey, I want to do an action movie with you," because, Adam was trying to follow like the Eddie Murphy trajectory, and he wanted to do an action movie. And because they had the same agent, they went out looking for scripts, and this is the one that they found. And I think Bulletproof was intended as an Ice-T vehicle before it went to them, and they reworked it for those guys, and things didn't click. It was one of those movies that I think Ernest Dickerson was trying to go for like a really raunchy R-rated comedy and make it about the values of friendship and the responsibilities of it all. And the studio wanted to make it a little bit more to Adam Sandler's audience, which meant having to water it down a bit, but it was still R-rated. Even so, it just didn't work. And because of that, not only did Damon Wayans kind of fall down even further in his career, because he had like a couple of hits and then was really slumping at this point, but nobody was hiring Ernest Dickerson after that. He was doing mostly TV stuff. He was going to do Blade at one point, and because of this movie, he lost that gig to Stephen Norrington, and his career was never really the same after that as a director. So it's kind of a shame it didn't work out. And I know even when I've tried to go back to it after a few years, it still doesn't hold up. It's still just kind of like, you had some interesting ideas, with like the girlfriend, the twist there where she's the mole working for James Caan, and the reversal of the 48 hours formula, but it just didn't work. But then of course Sandler bounced back with The Wedding Singer, and that kind of made him on the road to being like one of the hot comedians in film. But this almost destroyed it completely.
Well, the film, I think it's best viewed when it came out, because as it gets older, it gets, the jokes are really get worse. Yeah. The thing that I guess keeps it kind of relevant is, again, the whole buddy thing and, the feeling of betrayal and all that. But also, I feel like I understand why Damon Wayans is the leading man, the straight man for the most part. And it shows that he can play the leading man and the straight man, but that's the problem. We know Damon Wayans from comedy so well that it's strange, like in this whole movie, he's playing it so straight. It's sort of like Jamie Foxx in the Miami Vice movie, where it's just like, you're just playing it straight. You're not showing any humanity or like any like human instincts. You're not even, like times when you could be funny. You're not allowing yourself to be funny. And I mean, obviously Adam Sandler's usual writers weren't in, but his friend Alan Covert was in a small role. But it's still a Sandler type with the whole yelling and macho, and then, kind of being a wuss, but I will say it's like, again, the one thing I can say is that years, have passed since watching the movie. You can sit there and you don't take it as seriously. It doesn't feel as insulting as how bad it is. But one of the problems with the movie that I even thought when I saw the trailer, because I didn't see this movie for years until it came on cable, the whole way through. But it feels like you can tell everything looks like a set. Nothing looks natural. Yeah. Everything looks artificial. So that takes away from the realism of it. And it looks kind of cheap, for an action comedy. So that's, another problem I had with the movie. I like the femme fatale, Kristen Wilson. I wish she was in more of it, actually.
Yeah, and, they keep putting her like the sister parts, or just, like very minuscule roles, or like Eddie Murphy's wife in Dr. Dolittle. But I feel like she's capable of so much more.
Exactly. Like, they didn't even show her sexiness in this movie. It was just, oh, this is a woman who was a nurse who helped me back. Yeah. Okay. The only time the film becomes even amusing is when they go to that like cabin, and, Adam Sandler, for some odd reason, is trying to get all this sexual kinky stuff with the guy, who runs it. That was the only part of the movie that I found most amusing. I mean, it was fun seeing James Caan as the villain after James Woods dropped out because he was still filming Ghosts of Mississippi.
And I think Joe Don Baker was also up for it.
No, see, that would have... But then he doesn't have that celebrity factor as much as the other two. The other things, I guess, that, hurt the film, other than just like... I know Ernest Dickerson said that the studio castrated the film, even though it's still rated R, But like I said, and it's under 90 minutes, so it was like,
it went by quick when I saw it.
Yeah, it's like, we know this stuff can't sustain length, so let's just try and rush them through it. And that's the problem with the movie, is that everything feels rushed, everything feels artificial, nothing feels like really real. Nothing feels. It doesn't have any stakes that grab a hold of you. You just sit and watch. And nothing really surprised you, even when, his girlfriend turns out to be the mole. That doesn't even really surprise you, and like, even, I mean, James Caan does the best he can, but his henchmen aren't that memorable, it's like, oh, big guy and just random guy who he's with, so it was just like, I mean, it's violent. That's a little bit shocking, like how when they just go into the side house and then they just decimate everybody in the kitchen, but other than that, there's nothing really to grab a hold of. And, and unfortunately it was followed by a sequel in name only that reprised with one guy who I don't even know who he was, playing the Adam Sandler role, and Faison Love in the Damon Wayans
I'm
role.
like, how did he gain so much weight?
Food. But I'm like, who was when they were making the sequel, they're like, well, we can't get Damon Wayans. So, hey, I know Face on Love, because that's who I think of when I think of bald black comedians. And I'd be more so if I was Adam Sandler, because I'd be like, who the hell is that playing me? You know? But yeah, I didn't see the sequel, so I can't say much for the quality. But it did manage to look cheaper than the first film, so and it went straight to DVD either way. Um, I'm like, that's really all I gotta say about the movie. Like I said, it tries to be a modern 48 Hours with the roles reversed. I could see that as the pitch, but it was like everybody dropped the ball after that. It was like, oh, this happens and then this happens. And then wouldn't it be interesting if this happened? It was like, maybe, this is the movie. Maybe this movie should have had like Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler. Maybe they should have starred in Double Take or something like that. Like at least that gives them a chance to show comedy and be serious at different times. Because like I said, Adam Sandler is pretty much all comedy throughout, whereas Damon Wayans is pure playing it straight. And I still needed that like flair of him playing, at least a little comedy.
Well, yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's definitely the issue with Sandler. Like I said, Sandler's being Sandler, and he's kind of pulling back from more of the potty humor that he did in his solo movies. I mean, it's kind of there, but not as much. Damon Wayans, his humor is very particular because I feel like when he was on Saturday Night Live, not Saturday, actually he was on Saturday Night Live. He got fired for doing the gay skit. Yes. But even on Living Color, he's a very particular kind of comedian who's good at playing characters. You see it with Homie the Clown, you see it with the homeless guy, the Mo Money skits he used to do, the Men on Film. That's where he thrives. When you try to get him to play a straight man, it doesn't seem natural for him. I mean, the last Boy Scout, he didn't have that much chemistry with Bruce Willis and they didn't get along. And Mo Money felt like it had some moments, but then it got awkward where it was trying to be like Beverly Hills Cop with the action and the comedy. And then a whole third act where he's chasing the bad guy on the streets. It feels awkward to see him do that. And then when they try to give him character parts of comedies like Blank Man and Major Payne, it's just taking like a Saturday Night Live or the Living Color sketch, stretch it out for 2 hours, and it loses steam after the first half hour. So nobody's ever really caught him perfectly, except when he did Bamboozled. That's where I thought he did his best acting. But other times, nobody knows what to do with him.
Well, with Bamboozled, I don't know if it was a character or something. He came up with that voice in the movie. That was the only time where I felt like he was kind of over the top in that movie, where he would just try to, do that voice. It just seemed like the wrong accent for the wrong type of movie. I get what he was trying to do, but again, that's Bamboozled. We're talking about Bulletproof, but like I said, I mean, this is a movie. I mean, it was 1996. This is what was passing for action comedy, but it seemed like it could have gone through a few more drafts, before, being filmed. And I wish, like, even though he says it was castrated, I wish he could give examples or maybe some cut scenes or descriptions as to like what it would have been, because again, the comedy that's there now isn't all that strong. So I'm like, so is like the strongest stuff on the cutting room floor, or what?
Not much, because there was a TV version of this that I remember seeing on USA where they actually had a number of deleted scenes in there, probably to make up for the lost time of cutting out all the foul language. And I remember the ending was different because in the original ending, after Adam Sandler runs off, the Damon Wayans boss shows up to apprehend everybody. They apprehend the girl, and Damon blackmails him. Like, he's not a bad guy, but he's kind of like, well, we still want to get Adam Sandler. And he's like, well, you're not going to get this book if, you don't let him go. So they did have some stuff, and there was like some additional humor, but nothing that would have changed the movie for the better. It wasn't like there was like some heavier comedy that would have been so much of a laugh out riot that this thing would have probably landed real sequels with these guys. And I'll tell you the truth, it's a shame they didn't work together after this, or at least not see Wayne's do small roles in Sandler's movies, because I feel like they probably could have found some better material down the line. And actually, James Caan ended up working with Sandler again, and That's My Boy. He played a priest in that. So
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think there's a reason. Like I remember his website, Adam Sandler's website. He would always have behind the scenes pictures of all the movies he worked on, and that's the only one he had nothing. So I think that tells you how he feels about Bulletproof.
I was about to say, well, maybe he's like, well, I have a few black friends, so I don't need another one with,
Oh, Chris
Damon.
Rock's enough.
Yeah, he's like, I got Chris Rock, I got Tim Meadows, I got Shaq, I got Terry Crews now. Who needs a Damon Wayans? Though Damon Wayans could have been effective in The Longest Yard, and he could have been one of the characters. But yeah, because I was just wondering, like, why out of all the movies in the world did you pick a Bulletproof? So now at least I know why, because I'm just like, it's one of those movies you can, give or take, it has its fans, I can't say that I'm one of them, but I don't think it's horrible.
No.
But it's one of those movies where you can see so much potential. And unfortunately, it just feels like it dropped the ball for the most part.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else to say about Bulletproof?
Just that it's a shame for Ernest Dickerson's career, with the trajectory he was on with Juice and Surviving the Game. And he has a pretty good style here. It's not like it's all terrible, like the camera movements, the zoom shots he does in the action scenes. But again, it just wasn't, it was out of his wheelhouse for him. And, he tried to do Never Die Alone with DMX to try to get back to his Juice roots, but he never quite got there. And, I think he could have been capable of a lot more if he hadn't done this movie.
True. So, unfortunately, that ends our business for this episode of Deep Dive. We will see you next time.